All right, guys, let's get started. Jiebei, you ready? All right. So, Jiebei, Luo, and Fang here, we are going to talk about the one digital preservation project that we did at Rutgers University, in which we upgraded the server, our entire infrastructure, and video formats. And Jiebei is going to give you an overview of what we've done for the user interface and the database. I will give you more backend server end information. Jiebei, the floor.
Okay. First, I would like to thank you all for attending to our presentation, and thank you for being interested in our project. The archive of the New Jersey Supreme Court oral argument is hosted by Rutgers Law Library. And in this section, we will talk about how we use open source software and freeware to upgrade this digital collection. First, I would like to do an overview introduction of this project. The New Jersey Supreme Court Oral Arguments Database was established in 2002, and it has over 1,000 documents in the database. And the overall video length is over 6,000 hours, and the visiting volume is about 3,000 per month. However, with the scale of the collection growing and the demands are for the research demands for video collection and for video resources, the original website cannot meet the search and browsing demands from our patients, and it cannot meet the administration needs from us. And so we use the open source software to upgrade this collection in 4 aspects, which are we reconstruct the database, we improve the video feed features, and we improve the web interface, and last, we improve the administration workflow. First, I would like to talk about the original database. As you can see, this is the structure of the original database. There are only 2 tables in the original database. The first one is for recording the case information, and the second is for recording the counsel name. However, either of these tables is normalized, and there's no specific primary key assigned in these 2 tables, which caused the problem we have is the reappealing problem. Every case has its case number, which is assigned by the New Jersey Supreme Court. Usually, the case number is unique, but when the case is reappealed, a new case will be generated, but it will share the same case number with the original one. And according to our previous practice, we will delete the original content and put the new information into the record. However, according to the feedback from our patrons, both of these 2 cases should be kept in the database, and because they are valuable. So this is the first problem. And the second is we expect to integrate more functions in our upgraded website, such as tagging function. We want to provide more category information for our patients, or we want to count the clicking times of our cases. We want to know which cases are more popular than others. So these 2 tables cannot provide sufficient support for the upgraded website. This is and another problem of the database is this is web page of a single case of the original database. As you can see, the page is actually displayed by HTML page. Every single record has this page, because since we have over 1,000 cases in our database, so we have over 1,000 static web pages on the server to display this single record to our patients. This is very inefficient, and Because when you want to make some changes of some records, such as you want to change the name of the console, you need to open the HTML pages to revise a single piece of information. And at the same time, you need to revise the information kept in the old database. You need to maintain the accuracy and the consistency of these two places, which cause a lot of troubles in maintaining the accuracy of the database. So we reconstruct the whole database. As you can see, this is the upgraded database. There are more tables in this new database, and the tables are normalized, and we add foreign keys to connect these tables, so every piece of information will be unique. So if you want to add information, you just need to add in one place because they are connected by foreign keys. And I will explain how the difference between the previous data flow and the updated data flow. In the past, the request is passed by HTML hyperlink. So when the request is received, a static web page will be open, which is like what I mentioned. There are over 1,000 pages. But in the updated data flow, the request is passed by PHP scripts, and the result page will be retrieved by PHP scripts from database directly. And according to the search or browsing request from the patient, dynamic web page will be open. And but actually, when they close the page, nothing will be left on the server. So no pages need to be made or created in advance or uploaded to the server. This is the difference between the previous data flow and the upgrade data flow. This is the on the left is the example of our single record, and on the right you can see this is the video properties of our collection. And the video is another major part in our project. In this project, in the previous database, we have WMV videos for the people who do not use Windows or they cannot play the videos, and this is not acceptable for a video collection. And in this project, we want to convert the WMV format to a more compatible format, which is MP4, to make it possible for video play across browser. And we use two software, which is this is shown by on the right side is the format factory we use to convert the videos under Windows. We also use FFmpeg to convert videos under Linux. Two softwares are all powerful and flexible in converting videos. And another improvement is we use HTML5 video tag to embed the videos. The video element provided by HTML5 is the greatest feature because we don't need to use any plugins to play videos in web browser. And the track element under the video element can provide a standard and a simple way to add subtitles for videos. What's more important is when the subtitles are embedded, the search engine will be able to know what's in the video. So we will be able to provide a full text search of the videos in our collection. And here we can see the upgrades in our user interface. On the left is the old website, and on the right is the new homepage. As you can see, we provide more search functions, more browsing functions. You may be able to browse the function by time, by the case type, by the name of the console, and you can also view the most popular cases. But in the old website, you can only view the cases by year, and which is not usable or intuitive for our patients. This is the results when you do a search or browse. We break the list into 20 results per page, but in the past, the list is very long and it's not very easy to find what you're looking for. But in the updated result page, there are only 20 results in each page, and they are listed according to the time, so it's more usable for our patients. This is the comparison of the single result page. As you can see, the video can be played directly from on the browser. And for the administration, as you can see, in the old workflow, there are a lot of pages are kept on the server. When there's a new document added into our database, we need to create a record in the database. We need to create a single PHP page for this document, XML file for the document, and a video link. So when there's any changes you want to make, you need to open these 5 places to change a single piece of information. But in the new process, everything is kept in the database as a raw data. And when you need to use the function, or you need to use the PHP file, you just send the request, and the PHP script will do this for you. Everything will be kept in the database, and it helps to keep the consistency and the accuracy of our data. So summary. This is the summary of my part in this project. For administration, we simplify the procedure because for administrator, you only need to edit the one place, which is the MySQL database. You do not need to edit any web pages anymore. And for database, as we reconstruct the whole database, they're connected by the foreign keys, so the consistency and the accuracy is guaranteed by the new database. And we make the video play in the web browser directly. And for the user interface, we provide a more usable and intuitive interface and improve the usability for our patients.
Jiebei just talked about the redesign of our user interface and the database infrastructure. What I'm going to talk about is the back end of the server side from my perspective. When I started this project, I was facing a problem, to deal with roughly something like 3,000 videos plus 2,000 subtitle files. These are probably, it's not that big, but they are not consistent, because when the Supreme Court started recording in 2002, they got one codec, and then in the middle they switched to another codec. Then that leaves me a problem, which is to try to figure out a way to re-encode these 2 different sites into one codec that is acceptable by the HTML5. That's one major challenge to me. The other one is to figure out a way to incorporate the SMI file, which is the subtitle file that's created by the Supreme Court. They have some professional, I don't know what I call the recorders, to compose the transcripts for the case file. But the SML file, later on I will talk about more, is actually obsolete. It was designed for WMV by Microsoft. And the format is more like HTML, but it's very complicated. But I eventually figured out a way to convert SML file into VTT file, which is acceptable by the HTML5 track element. I will talk about more in details later on. And then we will incorporate the video metadata from the database and the video file itself, make all these two segments together and create one gigantic XML file and dump them into mark record so that the library, the ILL system can pick it up from there. When we talk about video formats, we often refer video formats to a particular extension file name, such as MP4, WMV, but those are actually not that accurate. WM4 and WMV are containers. In this container, you can have video codec and audio codec and EXIF metadata. I put down two examples at the bottom there, which are compatible with HTML5. I was able to convert my WMV file into these two formats via FFmpeg. So MP4 format, you use MP4 as a container. Within it, you have H.264 as video codec. And you can use AAC codec as for the audio component, and you can obviously add EXIF metadata into the record. WebM, which is really pushed hard by Google lately, Google even threatened that they are going to discontinue supporting MP4, I think back to 2011. But later on, I think they changed their mind because right now I'm still able to play my videos through Google Chrome. So they didn't stop the support of the MP4 file. But anyhow, they are pushing their way on the VP8 and VP9 video codec, as well as, I forgot to mention the various audio codec and OPS audio codec. So for video, there are a bunch of video containers that you can choose. But within different video containers, you can choose codec. Codec is a short name for coder and decoder. Just like I described before, we have H.264, we have WebM, those are all codecs. When we talk about codecs, it actually has encoder and decoder. So you have encoder to encode the video into that particular format following the codec specifications. And when you try to play it back, the decoder will take it over and display the video, and it was encoded into the codec. So a WMV file, you can encode it. Here is a more specific description when you are trying to describe a video file. So we can say a WMV file contains WMV3 data. By that, I know that the WMV file was actually encoded using WMV3 codec. Same thing goes to MP4. MP4, you can describe it here. We can say it contains H.264 data, or we can say it contains DIVX data. Just different combination of video and audio codecs. And when you talk about codec, I realized that there are two different flavors. One is compressed codec, and there is another uncompressed codec. Uncompressed codec nowadays are not particularly useful in the real practice because they are just so gigantic. But they are good for archival purposes, so you have to keep them around if they are available. In our case, we don't have uncompressed video. We just get the WM3 file directly from the stream core. When we talk about compressed video, we have lossless compression, which is nowadays very popular because it's maintained the quality. But again, the data size could be a little bit bigger compared to the lossy comparison. For lossy comparison, you sacrifice quality over size. But when you are downstreaming the video, it all makes sense. Because after all, we don't need that high quality. We don't need to see the judge face, the more long judge faces. No. Just, yeah, I mean, come on. Anyhow, when you choose a codec, you should be careful what you are getting into. The four kind of sum of rules that I come up with are this. it has to be well documented. So when there's something going wrong, you can always get a debugging point, to read the specs. And it has to be widely adopted by the industry. So you are not a single player in the field. You are going to follow the big guys. In this particular case, I follow the MP4. And you have to allow access to raw data later on if you want to re-encode it into some other format. You don't want to re-encode your video from the one that you encoded. You want to go back to the raw data and encode it from there. And then it has to be supported by multiple systems and platforms, not just one particular flavor, such as Internet Explorer or something like that. Because we license learn, Windows is just too big. We have to find some other platform. That's one of the reasons why we choose HTML5 over some other available technology. Because we've been using WMV file for like 10-some years, and every time we got a phone call regarding why I cannot play this video through your website, they always blame me. They don't want to check their Windows machine or Mac machine has the direct plugin to play it. Because WMV file, you have to play it with a plugin, even if you were using a Windows machine. So either way, difficult time. So anyhow, when you are doing encoder, there are 4 my favorite tools for doing the recording. Audacity, I think everybody pretty much knows that, but it's pretty good when you're dealing with audio-only recordings, which in our case is just to manipulate, increase the volume a little bit and down it, or separate AV into different streams. Handbrake, you can convert or get information out from Handbrake. It's free and it's cross-platform, but I don't use that much, or as often as I use FFmpeg. And for Windows-only machines, you can use Format Factory, which can do batch process and just click and drag and drop operation and do the job. But there has to be one human involved in the process. That's the downside of using it. FFmpeg is my favorite tool. I just use it at the server end. I run a script, and that one will take over. Just save me hundreds of hours to do the video converting. I just dump all the files in, run the scripts, it converts the video for me. And by the morning I come, everything's there. So when you are doing FFmpeg, it sounds terrific, but it's actually difficult to start with. Because when you are compile FFmpeg, you have to have roughly 15 dependency libraries in order to get FFmpeg compiled. But among those 15 dependency libraries, but 5 of which are actually related to X11 platform. If you are not going to use GUI stuff with FFmpeg, you don't need to worry about that. But if you want to run FFmpeg in command line mode, you have to configure 10 dependency libraries first. And when you do actual compiling, after you got all this set up, all the dependency libraries set up, when you do the actual compiling, I marked in red are the requirements for the MP4 video. In light blue are the requirements for the WebAmp codecs. Those are the little tiny switches that you have to turn them on or off to get the codec that you want. Otherwise, when you are doing the actually encoding, you will have problem. Here is the little tiny script that I talked about. What this script does is to read whatever in the current directory, looking for WMV files and read them into an array, and then based on the array, it converts, run this command in the shell, and get, here we got a code from FFmpeg to convert this file with minimal log using lab X264 codec with a relatively good quality into this file. That's what this red line means. This time -f is just for my own purposes. I just want to have a log of how many times spent on a particular converting. I just want to have search logs, then everything will be dumped into the log file. That's what this script does. And here is one example, one segment of my log file. So in this particular case, the file name was A-28-11 and was converted using roughly 20 minutes. My machine, by the way, is an old server that has 2-core Exxon processor. We have a more sophisticated server, but I just, for experimental purposes, I just use my old server. So I will not interrupt the real production. The original file was in a WMA format, which is roughly 1.33 giga. After converting, it downsized to 400 some mega. So we're talking about 3 times shorter or smaller than the original one. So we save some space on the server. The server's hard drive are a premium real estate. If you don't know that, why we so care about the server space? They are not regular desktop hard drives. They are pretty expensive. But again, if you were going to save them in the cloud, even, you're still paying for that. So there's always a cost involved. So now let's talk about metadata. Metadata is pretty fun. In this particular project, we have to deal with 2 components. One, the metadata that we created using the admin page that Jiebei composed that dumps all the information into the MySQL database. And 2, we have to figure out a way to extract embedded metadata within the video file that we received from the Supreme Court. So for the MySQL, it's pretty simple because we have a way to dump the data into XML, or we can have the entire database dumped into MySQL, which can be later on converted into CSV file. It's pretty simple for that. But for extracting from the video file itself, I started with FFmpeg. Again, that's because it's my favorite tool. I figured because it does such excellent job in converting. I figured it would be, easy to use and give me more stuff from extracting the metadata. But it turns out it's not. It's just so difficult to use and is give you very little tiny information. It's just so pathetic. If you use that, it just doesn't make sense at all. Come on, it just compared to the other 2 tools that I'm going to talk about. One is Mediainfo. This one you have to get it installed through the server, but this Mediainfo can deal with a wide array of file formats. The first line on the top is how to get it installed on the Ubuntu server, which is pretty simple. After that, you just run a simple command line on that, and you got all kinds of information. There are some repeated information, but I just shrink it down to give you a better picture. Otherwise, it just over the screen, just too much. So basically, what this little command telling me is the video is composed using X264 codec, and the codec configuration was like this. That's pretty much all I need from using Mediainfo. And Mediainfo give you a more user-friendly Windows utility. If you have work-study students to work for you, you can just give them instead of the command line stuff, because you have to allow them to access server, but they are temporary students. For security reason, you don't want to open too wide for them. So probably it's a good idea to ask them to perform similar tasks on a local PC or something like that. Then you just transfer everything back. But my favorite tool in this occasion is EXIF2. Because this tool, in addition to what the information I just showed you, it gives you a wide array of metadata information on the particular file that you're talking about. Now, for instance, with this tiny command line, I was able to get all this. I had to eliminate some unnecessary properties from the final outputs because it's just too much. But again, as long as you can have access to the EXIF2, you can dump the metadata into a text file or something like that, then read it back to a database or to convert it into XML. So that's the way I figured it out. Pretty simple. Now we have a MySQL database, we have XML or text from the video itself, then we combine these two together, we have the big picture or the whole metadata for one particular case. So now we're talking about embedding HTML5 into web pages, which is really simple. You just have video tag in it. But the backend technology is not that simple. You have to have MP4, you have to have subtitles, you have to have a dynamically created PNG image to show the starting screen. And when you're referring to, in this project, we converted the WMV file into two different flavors, MP4 and WMV. The browser, the modern browsers, they are smart enough to pick from one of these two different formats, that's suitable for your particular machine. The browser will make the decision for you as long as you place the source link inside the video tag. If you only play one source, you might just stack it into the video tag instead of just placing them together here. For subtitles, we from the starting of the collection, we keep receiving SMI files. For a while, I was wondering what the SMI file does. I don't really know. But later on, I figured it's just a bunch of HTML codes for synchronizing subtitles with WMV file, which we never use. But later on, I figured out a way to convert SMI file into VTT file. And when you are trying to have subtitles with your video, there are two ways to do it. One is you hard code it. You encode the subtitle with the video using FFmpeg or other utilities that's compatible. You read in the subtitle, you have the video file, you smash them together, and you have one final video. But the final video that contains the subtitle, they are permanent. There's no way you can turn it off. It's always stuck at the bottom or anywhere you specify. The other way, which is the way that I chose, is to embed it into your HTML page through track element. Just like what I showed here in this code line. You can just stuck it within the video tag there, and then the user has the choice to turn it on or off. So which is much more convenient or makes sense to me. So we go with that. Unfortunately, the track element is not supported by Firefox 30, which is the newest version. But they made an announcement that they are going to support the track elements starting with Firefox 31. They used to support these elements back to Firefox 24, I believe, but for some reason they just turned it off, the supporting. But now with Firefox 31, it's back on. So based on this chart here, you can tell as long as you have a more than 5 years old machine, you should be able to play the video that they created. It's no problem. And I tried on my iPhone, it plays beautifully. So there's no problem on mobile devices. I don't need to redesign or come up with a mobile flavor. It just good. Subtitle formats, really? You just SMI file was the original file format that we received. I keep mentioning it because I don't have any choice. The Supreme Court just dumped this file to me, and I cannot say, no, you cannot give me this. It does give me this, and it's in this bizarre configuration. It's very difficult, actually. It's just that you have to mention the styles at front, and then you have to manipulate it as if you were editing an HTML page. Whereas Srt file, which is the VTT file based on, Srt file is originally being used by DVD industries. They are just come with, every time you turn on the closed caption on your DVD player, it's actually reading out Srt files from the disk. So it's very simple. It starts with a sequence number. And then after the sequence number, you have a time telling which this caption should go, should start when, and it should end when. And then that's the closed caption. And then in between two different segments, you have a blank line. That's the simple format. That's basically the simplest format. But later on, Web VTT, they just eliminated the sequence number and come up with a Web VTT announcement indicator there to show that this one is different than the regular SRT file that you used to use, and the time code is a little bit different. But this can be converted pretty easily. When you do the subtitle converting, I actually found a pretty funny service. It's called amarva.org. I don't know if anyone use it. It's just a bunch of, you upload your video files to the site, or you point out where your video files is. Then you can group your army of laborers to do the real transcription for you, or you can hire someone to do the real transcription for you. There's no technology involved. They don't do actual computerized sound translation. No, they don't do that. They just arm it. Just pop it up, ask someone to do the video, and they do it for you. And probably it's a fee based, you have to pay for it, or you can find some helper for you. So I give up. Again back to my local machine, and I tried all these three utilities. One of which is called Batch Subtitle Converter. It does the job, but in my particular case, because some of our WMV files are kind of delayed for 5 seconds so that we can have a case title at the very beginning of the video. That was being done from my previous practice. But that caused a 5 seconds delay between the real video file and the subtitle file. So it's not synchronized. So this tool, although it does the job, it's not good enough in my particular case. Subtitles, it's pretty much the same, but actually it's server. It's on the server side. That's why I chose it. But eventually I used the subtitle edit, which is really good because it allows me to give me the delay options or advanced options to either to better synchronize the subtitle files with the video. So now we're going to talk about Apache Solver. Apache Solver is really advanced tool. Till now, I have to convince that I'm not really mastering it. I just have some basic success with that tool. What this tool does, this tool, first of all, why we use it is because it's very easy and very fast. Very easy, not very easy to configure, but very easy to set up queries to run the index. And because it's very easy, it's very efficient to index through your database. But before you can run Apache Solver, you have to have Tomcat, Java DDK, MSQL, GDEX driver, so that this tool can talk to get the basic up and running configuration. The Apache Solver is based on Apache Lucene. Is that correct spelling or pronounced? Yeah. The Apache Lucene is actually an index library. It's not. It it's just a library. It just offer a bunch of free codes. But Apache Solr just take over all these codes and put on a user interface, so or a command line connector that you can just use. Here is one example of the Apache admin page, in which you can configure your test audio queries and so on and so forth. In order to get Apache Solr index your MySQL database, you have to have the configure setup, spell out the driver that you're using, and insert the query that you want to use. And then you have to tell Apache Solr where this configuration file is so that it can be used. Apache Solr, you can also, they have a bunch of modules available for Drupal users. So if you're a Drupal user, you better make sure that you have all these 5 components installed and configured on your Drupal site. So you can take advantage of Apache Solr. But again, you have to install Apache Solr first before you can have these components really working for you. So now we talk about incorporate radio metadata. I think I briefly described this before. The idea is to have these 2 major components merged together into one gigantic CSV file, and then have this CSV file pumped through an XSL script transformer and get them converted into MARC format. I have a small script that does this job. But when we do actual XML converting, I use the utility here. The one that I used for under Linux is XSLT procs. That one is, I think it's by default. Everybody who deals with XML, they know this thing. And the other one is Unicorn XSL processor, but I don't think it kind of discontinued since 2002, but it still does the job. And then if you do have Mac record that need to be cleaned up, you have Mac edit. That you can, I think it's pretty good. But when you are dealing with online resources, you have to make sure that you have 856 field in your MARC record. Otherwise, the link will not be displayed correctly. I think the Library of Congress has a specific manual on the field 856. As long as you follow the manual, that should be fine. But the basic idea is you have this field number followed by a first indicator. Number 4 means HTTP. And second indicator, number 1, means on a version of the resource. And then followed by here. That's Z means public nodes. And U for link. That's the different parameters. That's pretty much all I have for the project. So any questions for me or Jiebei? No? Great.
What considerations did you have when you first made the video files, like in terms of quality versus file size?
The consideration, because we've been dealing with this thing for like a decade or 15 years. Before, I don't know if you saw it from the previous slides which Jiebei displayed. In the original current site, we had 2 different bit rates. One is the medium and the other one is the low. Because back then, everybody used modem. So when they dial up, they would like to choose the low bit rates for faster connection. But later on, we figured based on our Google analytic analysis, we found out almost 99% of our users are using broadband connectivities. They have broadband connections, so we don't need to worry about that no more. So we just gave up converting one video into 2 different flavors. We just convert them into a higher bandwidth. I think it's 150 kps. That's the one that we end up with.
Yeah, but how did you go about making the decision, the trade-offs between video quality?
We first took a look on the Google Analytics report, we run the Google Analytics. We embedded Google Analytics code on the site, so we know who used what browser and from where and so on and so forth. So it give you I think I did a presentation 3 years ago on Google Analytics, but anyhow, it's not related. But that's how we made the decision on, when we try to make the decision on which kind of quality we should go with.
I mean, for the big video, would you have any kind of like, do you know any best practices or anything of like, try to have this maximum file size, try to have this amount of compression or anything like that? Or was it just, this is what we can handle in the server? Like, was there decision making for like making the high resolution one?
No, there's no requirement, I think, first of all, because all of our patrons, they are satisfied with 150K.
I think maybe what Wilhelmina might be getting at is in the situation where you have a high definition video coming from the court.
Never happened.
I know. I think what I saw was
they don't improve their technology. There's no way that I can. I'm the middleman here. Come on.
So that I don't. They never had to make a decision because they were getting such poor video from the court.
The only decision we are going to make is just to see how bad, to what degree the patrons can accept the quality. That's the only decision that we only need to make. I mean, our hands are tied up. Yes.
You said the Supreme Court. Have you shown this to any institute, any schools, or just your product? Did you show anybody interest?
No. Should I? I showed you guys. Anything? Yes, John.
Well, you were showing us EXIF tool for looking at metadata. Are you putting in any other identifying metadata into those metadata fields?
No, I'm not. Only the metadata from the database and the metadata from the video itself.
So, but are you inserting into those metadata fields things like the caption of the case?
Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot, I was doing the XF2. I forgot to mention that there is the main reason why I chose that, not only because XF2 offers a much more detailed property settings for you, you can also manipulate those property settings. You can change the metadata, in other words, so you can edit it through XF2. And you can do it in a batch. That's the beauty of it. So that's the main reason why I chose it. Thank you for reminding me of that. So if later on you have something to add on to your video metadata, you can do so. Whereas the other two that I showed you, they just read, they don't write. Yeah. And you don't need to, when you're editing the metadata, you don't need to re-encode or anything. You just extract it, put it in, save it out. That's it. Anything? I'm eager for questions. No? Guess I got an early termination on the class then. Oh man, okay. Alright, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. That was very good. And
I'll be able to help.
impressive. I've been paying for a long time. And,
I didn't think about it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
I saw you laugh at the time.
Whenever you show that.
It's made it into the vocabulary, I'm hearing it, yeah.
I appreciate it.
probably forget about it.
I will have to every time I do.
No?
And so you should
Oh,
tell them,
I don't- yeah.
you should tell them.
Yes, it's one time now. Yeah.
Because whatever you get out of your whole triple tradition repository doesn't have all of the access.
Unless you want to write more products. Then you have to recomp.
But I think when people see that, and they're like, oh my God, you know, but you only do it one time.
Probably we didn't get scared.
Every few years, when I have to do that again, where are my notes? I don't have any notes. But that was terrific.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
What kind of server do you guys have?
Which one you're talking about? We have three. With the current website, we are using a very old storage 3000. Back to 10 years ago, you will not be able to answer specifications. That one we are going to throw it out. Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why we decided to compose this new website.
Yeah.
The current one, in the testing phase, we are using a PowerEdge T600,
Okay.
which is a relatively entry-level server.
Right.
But it provides sufficient enough platform for me to play with.
Mhm.
Eventually, we are going to move it on a PowerEdge T700
Okay.
that has 12 cores and roughly 100 gig or something like that.
Right.
That will jump up my productivity significantly. But for now, for the purpose of this project, we not.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you considered storing videos in the cloud, like on Amazon or something like that?
Actually, we were thinking about that, and the reason why we didn't go ahead is because for a while, all videos were hosted by a media server in the campus.
Right.
AP was a very headache,
Yeah.
obstacles to deal with,
Right.
and you will never get your test manager. And it's within our school. Think about it if you're
Right,
dealing
right,
with
right.
outsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we decided not to forget about it. Plus, you have to pay fee. We have our server anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Good job.
Right, fantastic.
For real?
It was really awesome.
You guys just.
We're your biggest fans. No, this is actually kind of when I wish was more of the programming was like not that I understood a lot of it, but like I kind of had an idea like how you did what you did, and I have a better idea what questions to ask, I guess.
That's why I didn't join you guys for the past several days.
Last minute prep.
Yeah, because there were last minute updates.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all it is.
it was very well done.
Hopefully.
I liked the one page report on it too.
Actually, you can use it throughout this
I
entire
know, I
project.
saw it in other places.
You just
There was
change
one
it,
with, like,
change the
it was like
command.
a real program page.
All right, that's right, that's stuff.
Yeah, don't forget your hats.
Yeah, you got yours too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. I can give this to my Max.
We're not special, we didn't present any
Well, next year.
50%, yeah, next year.
Actually, this group is pretty. I think most of them they don't know what I'm talking about.
You think?
Yeah.
Some of them are like IT
Some do.
people.
A lot don't, but some do.
Yeah, I don't think they are really that techy.
No, but some are.
Wade's pretty close to purple scroll though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
You did see the program with the purple scroll, right? You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, yes. I didn't hear that.